Hi, I'm Chung, and I've been privileged to be part of the RMM movement for the past 20 years. My goal in this video is to explain why you and the things you're learning about RMM are so critical to the future of music making, and why it's possible that a big part of the future of this profession may rest in your hands. Let's start with a quick review. What is RMM? RMM is an acronym for Recreational Music Making, and it refers to any form of music making that is not based entirely on mastery of performance. RMM includes any enjoyable, accessible, and fulfilling group or individual music-based activities that engage or unite people of all ages, regardless of ability or prior experience. The core principles of RMM proclaim that all people should experience the joy and benefits of making music, that music making can be enjoyed without stress and performance requirements, and that music making can nurture the whole person and improve quality of life. Finally, the goal of recreational music making is simply this: to cultivate millions of people who love making music. Now, with all that in mind, let me ask a framing question. Why are you watching this video today? Well, you might respond that you love making music, or that you're exploring new areas of teaching in hopes of increasing your income, or you simply want to become a more well-rounded teacher. Those are all great answers. But in addition, you're probably watching this video because you believe in the following noble ideas. First, that music making changes lives. Every music teacher knows that to be true. And second, you believe the world would be a much better place if more people made music. Now, I could spend this entire video describing all the benefits of music making, but I'd be preaching to the choir. You already know that music making enhances cognitive development in children, that it encourages perseverance, helps language development, nurtures responsibility, improves test scores, accelerates learning, and strengthens confidence. You know that music making exercises the brain, helps fight memory loss, improves mental focus, reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and staves off depression and anxiety. And of course you know that music making inspires creativity, increases productivity, and builds self-esteem in all who participate. And that's only the documented evidence. Everyone watching this video knows that music making makes us better as individuals, as families, as communities, as societies, as nations. When given the proper opportunity, music making can change the world. But this raises a question. If music making is that powerful, why aren't we reaching more people with what we do? Imagine that this iceberg represents the population of our country, over 330 million people. Now let's imagine, optimistically, that 5% are serious music makers. In reality, it's probably far less. But even if we use that 5% figure, the number of serious music makers, the tip of the iceberg, is pretty small in the big picture. So before you get too excited about the possibility of 16 million musicians in this country, consider the immense underside of the iceberg that we never see. It represents the people who never played an instrument or quit taking lessons. When we do the math, we're faced with the sad reality that over 300 million people are doing something else besides playing music. I call that group the other 95%. We're missing this vast majority of the population, and that's a big problem for all of us. Now, can this situation ever change? And if it can be changed, who will make it happen? I believe the people who can solve this problem are those who understand and pursue the golden quadrant. The place where music making could finally receive the recognition and respect that it deserves as one of the most vital and valued elements in our society. It's the place we really need to be if we want to dramatically change the world. So what is this golden quadrant? Here's a graph that can explain. This graph has 4 quadrants that classify various activities in terms of their impact on the world. The blue vertical axis indicates impact. The higher an activity appears on the graph, the greater its impact on the world. The red horizontal axis indicates numbers of people involved in that activity, from small numbers on the left to large numbers on the right. First, let's consider the lower left quadrant. This quadrant is occupied by activities that have a low impact on a small number of people. An example is the Canaan hop, an activity that comes from Sweden. It's an equestrian sport done not with horses, but with bunnies. You probably don't know much about it, and frankly, you just don't care. If activities in the lower left quadrant went away, most of the world wouldn't even notice. So let's move on quickly to the lower right quadrant. This region contains activities that have a low impact on a large number of people. Many activities in this quadrant might be classified as entertainment. One example is a game called the Candy Crush Saga. At its peak in 2014, Candy Crush had 93 million active users participating. That's nearly 4 times the entire population of Australia. Only 12 countries in the world have more people than that. We're talking large numbers. Players of Candy Crush Saga have spent 73 billion hours playing this game since it began, which prompts me to say, what? That's 8.3 million years of human resourcefulness spent playing a game. But games aren't the only activities that reside in this quadrant. You might also include watching TV shows like The Bachelor and Dancing with the Stars that together attract over 12 million viewers every week and probably billions of viewers since their inception. These kinds of activities captivate a large number of people but have a relatively low impact on society. If they disappeared, the world wouldn't suffer a great loss. Well, you might, but not the world. Now, the top left quadrant is an interesting one. Activities here have a high impact on a small number of people. A great example is the predominantly Asian art of Tai Chi. Tai Chi could certainly change the world if enough people did it. It could have an amazing impact on the mental and physical health of billions around the globe. But because Tai Chi is largely unknown to much of the world, its influence is limited. It has a high impact, but on a small number of people. We'll talk more about this quadrant later. Finally, we reach the top right quadrant of the graph, the place I call the golden quadrant. This is a place we have never been before. Activities in the golden quadrant have a high impact on a large number of people. 2 prime examples are computer technology and sports. Nearly every parent wants his or her children to participate in some kind of sport. And there's an option for virtually every child, no matter the personality or level of ability. Computers touch the lives of people in every life stage and situation. Today, most of our cell phones are essentially microcomputers. And with the incredible growth of the web and social media, the impact of computer-related technology continues to grow exponentially. Computers and sports are 2 of the greatest cultural imperatives of our day. The vast majority of the world population takes part in activities like these that are positioned in the golden quadrant. And for the most part, those activities have a big impact on our lives. The golden quadrant is the domain of world changers. When you get there, the world comes to your doorstep. Those who create and nurture activities in the golden quadrant find themselves in first chair for income, funding, audiences, media attention, status, and respect. Want proof? What attracts more people, sporting events or orchestra concerts? At universities, what gets funded first, the technology budget or the musical instrument budget? And how many sports radio stations are there in your city versus classical radio stations? You see my point. Being in the golden quadrant is like flying in first class when everybody else is in economy. Now, the next logical question is this: where would you find us on this chart? I think it's pretty clear that our profession is in the top left quadrant. We have a high impact on a relatively small number of people. Let's be honest. While what we bring to the world is incredibly powerful and valuable, the number of people we reach with serious music making is still relatively small. And for that reason, our ability to impact the world is limited. So, while this high-impact, small-number quadrant is an admirable place to be, we're still traveling in economy class, undervalued, always playing second fiddle to the big guys, never able to reach first class, the place where all of our budgets are funded, all of our concerts and CDs are sold out, all of our activities get major media attention, and all our studios have more students than we ever thought possible. These are things that happen when what you do becomes really popular. And right now, we can only dream. But what is it that keeps us out of the golden quadrant? Is it that people aren't interested in what we do? Absolutely not. A 2008 Gallup poll showed that 82% of people surveyed have always wanted to play an instrument. That's over 270 million people in this country alone. So why the disconnect? If hundreds of millions want to play music, why are we still stuck in the top left quadrant, reaching a relatively small number of people? Here's one man's humble opinion. Historically, our profession has been trying to reach people on our terms instead of theirs. What do I mean by our terms? Well, it usually means one-on-one private lessons, which are not very exciting for highly social people who love learning in groups. Learning on our terms often means they play our music, not necessarily music they want to play. Our terms require a significant amount of daily practice, done mostly alone, in the spare time that many people don't have. And too often, success on our terms is measured by high achievement, which becomes just another burden for people who are already weighed down by expectations of work and family. The truth is, most of the other 95% won't accept our terms. We don't fit their lifestyle, and many are afraid that they'll never live up to our expectations. If we want them to be part of our world, we have to change. The key to reaching millions and putting ourselves in the golden quadrant is to bring music to the other 95% on their terms. To meet them and teach them where they are in their journey, not where we think they should be. Maybe that means not pushing so hard, or creating more social experiences, or just striving to make the process more fun. And just as important, we need to redefine success. So the successful student is not necessarily someone who achieves in music, but someone who will love making music for years to come. If we could make those kinds of changes to our thinking and practices, we could create a future for the music teaching profession that is beyond anything we could ever imagine. Everything you know and have learned about recreational music making is designed to make that kind of future possible. If we ever get to the golden quadrant, it will be you who takes us there. But is all this even possible? Can we ever truly reach the golden quadrant? I believe we can. And to encourage you, here's how some other groups in our world have captured the other 95%. Consider the computer industry. There was a time in the last 40 years in which less than 5% of people owned a computer. But today, computers are everywhere, and they affect virtually every area of our lives. Why? Because software has made them so useful and so accessible to everyone at every level that now we can't even imagine life without them. Wouldn't it be great to live in a world where people can't even imagine life without music making? And how about social media, an activity that was virtually non-existent just 2 decades ago? In a short span of time, it has taken the world by storm. Social media captured our culture by meeting us all where we are, by making interactive communication accessible to all of us at every level, and by inviting us in. How much better would the world be if people took half the time they spent on social media and invested it in learning to play an instrument? And finally, consider sports, our biggest adversary in the fight for the time of young people. Here's my own story of how one unlikely sport found its way into the golden quadrant. When I graduated from high school in 1974, the sport of soccer was not on anybody's mind in the U.S., completely off the radar. Nobody I knew played soccer. Most of us thought it was a pretty silly game. For heaven's sake, you couldn't even use your hands. Back then, if anyone were to tell you that soccer would be really popular in America one day, you would tell them they were crazy. That was 1974. Now fast forward 15 years to 1989. By then, I was married with a 5-year-old son. What did I do? I put my kid in soccer. Why? Because everybody else's kid was doing it. Eventually, all 3 of my children did the same. Soccer became incredibly popular in 15 years. Not a century, not even a generation, just 15 years. And the people behind U.S. soccer got there not by focusing on the stars or the elite players or the elite coaches, because there really weren't any in America during the 1970s. The focus of their strategy was the nurturers, the local organizations, the ones who could cultivate millions who loved playing soccer. By doing that, they attracted my children and millions of others. By the way, do you know what their slogan is? I'll give you a hint. It's not everybody achieves. It's this: everybody plays. And for those who think this led to a bunch of hackers playing soccer across this country, fast forward another 15 years from the time I first put my sons in the sport. What happened as those millions got older? In 1999, the American women's national soccer team won the Women's World Cup in front of 100,000 screaming fans at the Rose Bowl. The American men's team earned a berth in the World Cup tournament 7 straight times. And more recently, the world watched with admiration as the U.S. women's soccer team went on to win 2 more World Cup titles in 2015 and 2019. Imagine that. Having millions who simply played brought forth more soccer excellence in America than anyone could have dreamed of in 1974. You see, a movement can grow from something small to something huge in a short time if those behind the movement will accept people where they are, meet them on their terms, and warmly invite them in. That is the heart of recreational music making. And if we will grow it together, one day the prize will belong to all of us. One final thought as I close. There is an unofficial hierarchy in our profession that gives the greatest honor and attention to those who teach at the highest levels. This is a normal hierarchy that exists in many professions. Those at the top are regarded as the most important and relied upon to lead those at the grassroots to greater skill and a better future. Now, with all due respect to the teachers of the elite, many of whom we would regard as our personal friends and colleagues, the future of our profession in the big picture depends on turning that hierarchy upside down. We need to make the grassroots teachers, the nurturers, the ones who are willing to meet people where they are, the very focus of our strategy. We need to give them the greatest attention and at least an equal portion of the honor. We need to encourage them, assist them, and extol them. Why? Because they are the ones who can dramatically change our world. They are the key to overflowing music budgets in our schools, the key to huge audiences for our recitals, to massive CD sales, and to having tens of millions more across our culture who actually know who we are and respect us for what we do. If the nurturers get what they need from this profession, and if they are willing to personalize their teaching to reach the other 95%, they will transform all our lives. Who are these nurturers I'm talking about? You. You who through RMM have become some of the most important people in the world of music making. You hold the big picture of this profession in your hands. And I want to thank you in advance for your willingness to lead us into a future that is bigger and better than we have ever known.